Welcome back to the Tectonic Takes podcast. We are here to talk about San Jose Earthquakes 4, Portland Timbers 1. We've got myself, Ivan. We've got Abram. We've got Devon. And let's start with you, Devon. We got to see San Jose Earthquakes respond from a three-game losing streak in a big way. This was the first hurdle cleared in the gauntlet that is May, and it feels good to open the month with a win.
It's always great to beat Portland at home and beat Portland anytime. We're still waiting for the time to beat Portland away, but you know what? That day will come. But for now, we can celebrate a 4-1 victory. I told the Discord server and you guys in private. It's nice when my girlfriend shows up because we've got a pretty fantastic record every single time. 14 goals scored, 3 consecutive wins. I think the Quakes might need to kidnap her and hold her hostage for the rest of the season until we win MLS Cup.
We do not encourage kidnapping. But yeah, tongue in cheek, that wouldn't be the worst idea.
No. I'm just kidding. But yeah, no, seeing a 4-1 win, it makes everyone's heart flutter and everyone leave the stadium with a smile and starts your week well. Abram, what are your thoughts?
I mean, what else? Like, it was awesome. I got to see Espinoza have an incredible game, and he now takes over Abobasi in the top Earthquakes goal scorers chart. Sorry, I don't know if you guys can hear the plane. I apologize for that. And then I also, got Chicho scoring, and we got Buddha scoring. The whole front line ended up with a goal, which is always great to see, and always happy to see Buddha contributing because he can be a little bit inconsistent, but this is the kind of thing he needs to, get his confidence up. And when he's confident, he does good things for us. So, happy.
And we could have won 6-1 in that case. There were 2 goals called back as well. I don't know if you ever want to touch on.
Yeah, we will touch on those throughout this podcast. This win helps boost the Quakes up to 10th currently on the playoffs. Maybe we're sitting at 9th before and results didn't go our way, but we'll address the table a bit more seriously at the end of this month because there's going to be a lot of games to play when all is said and done. At least the positive sign is that their goal difference is markedly better than anyone else in the Western Conference, 8th or below. And even 6th place Austin with 16 points, so 3 more than us, has a -6 goal difference. So that is very interesting indeed. But one thing that we did know going into this is that Portland Timbers were pretty high on the table. They were second in the West going into this game. They dropped to third with this loss behind Minnesota. Of course, Vancouver Whitecaps continue to do very well. But part of the reason why Portland have done so well is because their lineup is pretty strong across the board, and that's even factoring in a few key misses with injuries. Chara, of course, has many Portland Timbers records in his arsenal there. He was a miss for them in midfield, as we saw in this game. And one of their fullbacks, Jimmer Forey, he's pretty good too. They were without Jonathan Rodriguez. And maybe the most impactful loss in this case is their goalkeeper situation. Originally, Kripo was the starter ahead of fellow Canadian international teammate James Pantemis, but it seems like he has become the starter and has been performing a lot better. He was out for this game, so Kripo got another opportunity. He did win MLS Cup with LAFC. He was injured and made way for McCarthy in that final, but it was not a great game for him. The back line of Miller, Sermon, Mosquera, and Bravo struggled a bit. You look at Kamal Miller, he's regressed a little bit since his Inter Miami days in terms of performances. Finn Sermon, the New Zealand international, is still only 21. But they had a lot of dangerous attacking options that thankfully they only scored 1 goal with them, with David DaCosta providing the assist for Mora right before halftime. But then, yeah, you had Anthony, of course, Santiago Moreno, and then their midfield duo of Joao Ortiz and David Ayala makes up the starting 11 for Portland Timbers. So this was going to be a battle, and they did have to battle for large parts of this game, even when they got those 3 goals in the first half. Devin, what did you think of Portland's squad going into this one?
You know, I wasn't too worried in an offensive point of view. Like if I were a Portland fan, I would, my worry would increase actually because of the fact that Daniel's back. As an Earthquakes fan, I was very confident that despite whatever chances Portland may have had going into the game, I felt no worries. I actually felt quite at ease, and especially with Jones back and the defensive line, or as a possible 3-4-3, I was pretty confident. And then all of a sudden, we don't see Rodriguez in the starting 11. We don't see Bruno Wilson, and we don't see our normal center back duo. That brought out a little worry, and I thought maybe Anthony could have slotted away more opportunities that he was given, but thankfully we have Daniel, and we were only able to concede just one goal throughout the game.
Yep, Daniel was a huge boost in that net for the Quakes. Portland Timbers ended up using all their offensive substitutions from the bench. They had Christian Paredes, the Paraguayan midfielder. Uh, Interestingly, this would be the second time we played against Omer Fernandez, because in between the Colorado game and this one, Colorado traded Omer Fernandez to the Timbers for $250,000 in GAM. There was Ariel Lassiter, the winger, and then interestingly, Kevin Kelsey, the 20-year-old stud striker from Venezuela, who was with Cincinnati on loan last season. He only came off the bench in this one in the 76th minute. So the more veteran option, Felipe Mora, he got the nod in this game. He justified that start with at least scoring a goal, and he was one of the better players for the Timbers. But really interesting to see Kevin Kelsey being reduced to a sub role at this point. Granted, he is still pretty young, so just because he was impactful for the Cincinnati team last season, maybe it was a bit more of an inconsistent season for him so far here. But looking at the Quakes lineup, again, one of the big stories tends to be the center back selections. Romney has pretty much solidified his position, but on either side of him you have Daniel Muni and Max Floriani. And we saw a little bit more growing pains with Floriani in this game. He had a few good moments too, and then Rodriguez would get subbed on in the 72nd minute. But Abram, what do you make of the current center back situation with the Quakes and with Rodriguez being the bench option?
Well, I think that for this game, I think that Floriani looked a little bit out of his depth. I think that the lack of experience really shows, and it's exacerbated when a center back is a rookie. Just that's what happens. Similar to goalkeepers and midfielders, like really young players tend to not get considered for that position until they're more mature or have more experience. But I do think that he has a high upside. Don't forget that he was the highest center back prospect in the 2025 Super Draft. There's a reason that we picked him with our first pick. I think that he has a lot more to show to Earthquakes fans. But that being said, I think Bruce really got stung. It's hard to say that when we won 4-1, but that goal doesn't happen in my opinion. Sorry, the plans again. If Rodriguez is on the pitch, I don't think that goal happens, and I'm not necessarily saying that it's all Max Floriani's fault, but there's just like they're trying to pick holes at our defense, and when you have a rookie starting in that position, they're going to attack you a lot. That's going to be a glaring weakness for the opposition offense. I think Muni looks really good. I think that I like his play going forward. I think the other day we saw he had stats of like 24 progressive passes from center back, which was more than anyone else in that game day, match week, whatever you want to call it. So that's really good. I think that overall we have good depth that is like starting to grow. I think Reed Roberts and Max Floriani are gonna have to grow into that role. I think so. I think maybe Bruce is pushing it a little, giving Max time over Rodriguez at this point. I think Rodriguez should be the go-to guy. He's not injured as far as I know. He's not on the injury report or anything. So I would really like to see Rodriguez back in the lineup for MLS games. But, with the Open Cup coming up, it might not be a bad idea to give Max another shot to see what he could do against a USL opponent. But I don't think we should be like worried. I think when Wilson comes back, we'll see a little bit more solidity. I think that Wilson provides a lot to the defensive structure. So I'm not worried at all. I know that we concede a lot of goals, but that's just kind of the Earthquake's way.
Do we question for you guys? Do we think that this is more of a tactical move by Bruce by leaving Rodriguez on the bench? And my example being Rodriguez dribbling the ball up through the midfield and towards the attackers and finding himself higher up the field than Bruce probably wants us to, or wants his team to be, or wants him to be.
Ivan, I'll take this if you don't mind. So I actually really liked what you said when I wasn't here last time you guys recorded an episode, where you said that maybe Bruce doesn't trust Rodriguez if there's no Wilson, right? Because of the solidity that Wilson brings to the team, and the you're just more calm when he's in that defensive line. He's there to make up for anything that happens while Rodriguez is taking risks. So he mitigates the risk that Rodriguez brings. And if you don't have Wilson, then it's you trust Muni a little bit less than Wilson to make up for the, I don't want to say damage, but you know what I mean when I say that, like anything that goes wrong when Rodriguez is doing his escapades, you trust Muni a little bit less to be able to cover for him. So I think maybe when Wilson comes back, we'll see Rodriguez more, which is overall the more defensive, the more solid structure, like the three composition of center backs. I think Romney, I like Romney. I think a lot of people are like off about him, but I think he's like solid and fine, and he makes mistakes. But we all the center backs have been making mistakes, so I am interested to see what happens when Wilson comes back. I think that's when we're going to see the true, composition that Bruce has in his mind of what his ideal center back pairing would be.
Yeah, with Romney, I feel like the last few weeks, other than moments where the defense as a whole has struggled, I don't think that he's really been sticking out as the main culprit in that department. Earlier in the season, I would notice though that he would get drawn out a bit more out of position, being like a makeshift fullback or something, and he doesn't really have the qualities to excel when he's caught in those areas. But I think the reason why he's been the least rotated defender of the options Bruce Arena has is because he is consistently going to be that rock in defense. He's going to be able to communicate effectively and figure out how to best keep things covered when the Quakes are in possession there. Another area where things might get a little murky soon. Both Harks and LaRue put in a good shift in this game. Harks in particular, his defensive midfield capabilities and cutting out counterattacks and making things harder for the opposition midfield. That's going to be a tough sell to make way, whether it's Noel Buck, which I think that he is getting eased into the lineup, but Noel Buck may have to be a bench option if Harks and LaRue both perform well, because you also have to factor in Hernan Lopez. And then that's the other remaining question mark with the left winger role. Do you play both Arango and Martinez when they're both healthy? Maybe Hernan Lopez makes that role his own, but then Useni Buda, he also gave a good account of himself with goal and assist. So the four spots that are pretty much locked otherwise, I think the fullback pairings of Vitor Costa and Devon Jones are going to be solidified, and this was a good performance for them. And then, of course, Arango and Espinoza. Arango mainly because of his durability right now, and he's getting in good form, and Espinoza speaks for himself. So we know with Costa, he can be a little bit inconsistent at times, but he's playing well right now. But we got to talk about the first start for Devon Jones, a pair of assists, and in this phase of his career where he's no longer in that New England setup that he's been at for the bulk of that career. He had a brief spell at Columbus after that trade, and now he's in the San Jose Earthquakes. That he's having to adapt a little bit to some new environments, but he's showing that almost any MLS team can benefit from a Daewon Jones. Abram, what did you think of his performance?
I really liked the one. I thought that he looked very active on the right hand side. He was up and down. He provided SB with a lot of help. SB said as much in the press conference. He was just like, it was wonderful to look back and see Dewan's there. To touch a little bit on what you said, Ivan, about the solidification of the lineup, I'm not sure I 100% agree, but not because I think that like it shouldn't be that way, but I think that Bruce might go back to SB at fullback. I don't think I want that, but I think that the only reason that we went with the front three this time instead of the cam and a set of strikers is because Jose Martinez wasn't able to start. I think if Jose is able to start, then SB doesn't get to go forward to make that front three shape. I think that if Bruce has his way, then he'll want the front two, and so that means that there's not really space for Espinoza. I wish there was, and Saz has talked about using him as a number 10. I think that's an interesting proposition. But no, if I had it my way, I would go with the lineup you said, Ivan, because I think that's way more solid on and balanced on the flanks of having two fullbacks, dedicated fullbacks, and then also being able to attack with a dedicated winger. But Bruce seemed pretty bullish about starting both Chicho and Joseph. I can't say I've asked him about that, but that's just what I've seen. When we see Joseph back and healthy, and then we still go to this 3-4-3 as opposed to a 3-5-2, then I could say that like okay, he sees the SB is like really enjoying himself, not having to track all the way back, and seeing the benefits of that, and then committing to the change in a reaction to that. But I don't think that we're there yet with the pieces that we're missing. I think we have to like when Bruce has all the pieces that he wants and then still makes that decision to play differently, then I think that's when he's totally solidified in having that opinion, having or wanting to play that formation instead.
I do believe it's incredibly impossible to remove Chicho at this point from the starting lineup. I think that's a given now that he's leading or tied for first in the Golden Boot race. I find that take of Espinoza in the 10 position really interesting because if anything, we need him on the wing. We haven't seen someone cross the ball into the box. Either whether it be long distance crosses, short crosses, passes to the 6 or the 18. We don't see players make those types of passes like Espinoza can. And if Espinoza's in the 10, that not necessarily ruins, but that takes a ton of chances away on the right or left hand side, depending on where he's playing at the time. For players in the box like Chicho or Yosef, who are excellent at first time shots from crosses from Espinoza. I don't see Espinoza as that 10, more specifically in the dribbling aspect. He is a good dribbler, but I think he needs to have the ball closer to his body when dribbling to make up for that 10 role, like Hernan can, like Nico can. So I as much as I love Saz, I kind of disagree to see Espinoza in that 10 role.
I want to add to that I don't disagree that I also think that SB is a winger, but that's because SB is a winger. I don't think he'd be necessarily bad. I think that he has the ball IQ. I think he has the tenacity and also the pressing work ethic to play as a 10. But he is born and bred winger. Like the tendencies of a player really matter. You can't just like shoehorn them in a different position. You can try, but there's still tendencies that a player will often have, and he's just so good at beating his fullback from the wing. I think that you just want him on a flank no matter what, because those crossers are so lethal, because his ability to be a fullback is like no other in this league other than maybe Messi. But we're not going to get into that conversation. But Ivan, I am curious on your thoughts.
Yeah, I think with Espinoza, when I look at him with the ball at his feet, the way that he beats opponents, it's not necessarily pure dribbling, but it's like cutbacks, it's turns, change of direction, and passing himself out of trouble. He will make a back pass only if it's not too far back, but he will recognize when that's the only option. He can find almost anyone in the box, whether it's the 18-yard box, 6-yard box, and that's pretty much what we saw when he was setting up those goals. And pretty much all three goals in the first half, it was really precise passes. If there was a lucky deflection or not, it was still very hit with purpose, and it was well thought out, and all the finishes were as beautiful as the previous one. It just felt like they got the right contact on it. They knew exactly what they wanted to do, and for that moment, it felt like Portland's walls were down. It just felt like the Quakes were able to shoot and went in, shoot and went in, shoot and went in that 10-minute span, really. Before that, there was a few scares, such as Anthony having a heavy touch that uh, prevented a certain goal from the Timbers, where he had an open net to shoot at. Romney had to make a bit of a dive to block and prevent a chance as well. And there was a few moments, slight miscommunications between Muni and Floriani, but also other good moments where the Quakes were not only relieving pressure from the Timbers, but getting into good position themselves. There was one run that Useni Buddha made on the touchline nearest to the press box. It was on the Portland keeper's right-hand side, and he pretty much dribbled past 3 or 4 guys before he got fouled. And even if he didn't get fouled, that the best they could have done is kick the ball out for a throw-in in that situation. So San Jose Earthquakes had pretty much utmost confidence in themselves. They weathered some early storms. Uh, Other than back-to-back yellow cards between Harks and Muni in the 38th and 40th minute, and then when Morris scored the goal, it was a pretty solid first half. Any other thoughts on the first half, Devon?
Not too many first half thoughts, other than, it was nice to just have a lead into halftime. That's about it, really. I mean, we haven't really seen us enter a halftime lead with such confidence before, and also seeing our bench, seeing Noel Buck warming up in front of us, Rodriguez as an option, Nico as an option. It brought a lot of confidence to entering the second half and seeing what other attacking options Bruce may bring on, because when he makes substitutions, he makes attacking offensive substitutions. So yeah, at halftime I was extremely confident heading into the second.
Yeah, and I think the bench options are looking really good as we get some more players back. We still have 3 players that are out with injuries, so you imagine that those are players that you probably can project getting to the starting line, which will bring 3 players that are pretty solid into the bench. And it may also bring more players into playing for the town, which after we've started integrating some of those players on the outskirts of the first team squad into the town, all of a sudden they're winning again. So that's going to be a really good situation on both levels that the Quakes are focusing on. And you may have also noticed that there was only 3 players that came on from the bench: Rodriguez, Kay, and Buck. And for the attacking players in particular that didn't get a chance to play this game, Chakiris, Pellegrino, and Judd, my theory is that he's keeping them fresh for the Sacramento Republic game. But we'll talk a little bit more of that after we discuss the second half. And there's pretty much 3 big events that we have to discuss, 2 of them involving VAR. So I wish this was nice, as the minute implied, but in the 69th minute, LaRue drew a foul, and it came in the penalty box, and it looked like it was going to be a certain penalty kick. But then, after a long VAR check, which took about 3 minutes or so, it led into a substitution. They decided no penalty given. So, Abram, do you remember your thoughts as you saw that unfold?
I remember sitting next to you, and you're like, "It's contact. There's contact. There's contact. Like there's contact." And I was like, "Yeah." I mean, obviously, the ref disagreed. I think that the contact is like when the when he's putting like his foot down. Like it's just like it's really hard to explain it without showing the clip, but it's really awkward the way that it happened, and it doesn't seem. I think this is the referee thinking it doesn't seem like it should impede Bo's ability to keep running or stay standing. I think that's where he's like he didn't kick him. He just like his leg might have scraped him, which is contact. But and we've had that called against us. But I think the referee is like, well, he could have kept going, continued to play, and so he didn't call the foul. I don't know. We've had it called against us, so I'm like, I want it for us too. But this one is one where I'm like, okay, I can see what the ref is thinking, even if it's very frustrating to me.
We're going from least to most frustrating out of the two VAR calls. So, yeah, this is the one where you can kind of squint to your head and you're like, okay, maybe, but I felt like there was not enough evidence to overturn it based on the angles that we were being shown. Devin, anything else you thought, or more along the same lines?
I mean, even when I was sitting in the stands, I was screaming, "There's contact!" I stood up screaming, "Ref pen, ref pen!" And I was also checking the Discord to see what other fans sitting at home, were looking at. And one of our buddies, Luis, shout out Luis, also said that the contact just wasn't heavy enough to warrant a penalty for us. And if we were both sitting here on Portland's side, we would probably argue in favor of Portland, saying that that's not a penalty as well. And I'm going to try and play devil's advocate here and say, if this call was against the Quakes and Portland were to receive a penalty for this, I would probably vote in favor of no penalty as well, just because of the amount of contact there was. It wasn't heavy enough to warrant a penalty. And as much as I love Bo, and I hope that he continues to contribute in the future, I don't think it was enough to warrant a penalty, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I don't think it was dive or anything. There was certainly contact, but I guess the question, to quote Taylor Twellman, the question then becomes, was it enough contact where the play should have continued or not? So, yeah, I feel slightly better about dealing with that ultimate decision after having talked it through with you all. Now, turning back the time a little bit, the second half started where Portland was a bit more aggressive, which was to be expected. They were down 3-1. And this is what also summed up Floriani's struggles, in that there was 3 or 4 sequences where he was sliding to recover when being out of position. But then there was a counterattack that Harks stopped in its tracks. He got the ball to Vitor Costa, found Arango. We thought it was going to be 4-0, but then the offside was called, and the closest you could see is that he was offside by a knee. And this is the thing that I really struggle with the offside rule, is that how much of an advantage can you get when your knee is just bent slightly across the line of offside? It's not like it's a whole leg. It's not like you are a body offside. It's a knee. It felt like the marginal, of like when a photo finish happens in the Kentucky Derby and it's like the horse's nose, barely the difference between win and a loss. So, yeah, any other thoughts on that VAR decision? And we'll start with Devon this time, then Abram.
Sorry. Oh gosh, Abram and I kind of went back and forth about this too in a chat. And I just think it's really unfortunate that the rules come to the fact that like half of a knee determines an offsides call. I think it should be a clear and obvious like your body is past the defender to make that offsides. Because like if your hand is outstretched, your hand like you, it's soccer. Like you don't have any influence on your hand, but people will be like, if your elbow is offsides, then that's offsides because that's part of your body. You know, did he score with his knee? No, he scored with his foot. Um, I kind of think that MLS needs to be a little more clear on the rules and provide a little more leniency. I mean, yeah, his knee was in front, but I don't think that warrants an offsides call, and that goes for every team in the league. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like we should have had that. Abram?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that the ref was wrong. I think that the rule is wrong. I think that, you know, obviously I'm not going to get upset with the ref for calling the rules how they have to be written, but the rule I would love to adopt in world soccer, not just MLS, but I think there should be daylight between the attacker and the defender before it's offsides. I think that he should be 100%, like the even the last stud on his cleat should be in front of the defender of his line before you get called offsides. I hear it, the Rest is Football podcast with Alan Shearer and Gary Lineker and Micah Richards. We love Micah Richards. They all three of them agree on this. Is like we need more goals in the sport. This is like not helping. This is making the game more boring, more complicated, more time checking, a screen off to the side. We need like to make it so we can score more easily and not make the game more boring. That's just
I
you
I
know.
don't want to take any shots at the NBA here, but MLS kind of feels like an NBA-ish game now without the the commercials and quarter system. It's almost like there's too much stoppage, too many whistles blown in a game. Let the play continue. If it's a small foul, if the players are shoulder to shoulder and one falls over, don't call a foul because one player fell over. Let the game continue. Let the game play. And it's the same thing with like offsides. If it's a clear offsides, call the offsides. And if it's close enough to determine and warrant a VAR decision, let's go to VAR. But I don't like having to stop play every single time, like for a knee. You know what I mean? And they take like 5 to 6 minutes for those decisions, kind of like Abram was saying. It takes too long. Let the game play.
I think it's funny. I think you're right, Devin. I 100% agree with you, but I also think it's funny how we're like, all three of us were like, Bo Luru had like a inch of contact on, like the defender had a toe of contact on Bo Luru. It's a pen, and then we're like, it's barely a foul. It's barely a foul. Let him play. But that's why I think that like we have to be like, okay, is it or isn't it? Like, is it absolute or is it not? And if you're gonna say it's absolute for sometimes and not other times, then it's just not a good rule. It's not good officiating.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
ridiculous.
I think a good example of that though is like, for example, if a defender has possession of the ball in their half of the field and then they get pushed over by like a striker, I think that's an easy call to make for a foul, just to reset play. However, if you have the possession in your attacking third in the opposition box and then there's light contact or something happens, that warrants a VAR decision because that's a crucial change of the game. You know what I mean? And if there's like a regular shoulder to shoulder foul in around like the 50-yard line or half line, let play continue. Unless it's a crucial moment of play that determines an outcome of the game, sure, VAR is warranted in those tight circumstances. I just think that there's too many calls to be made in a 90-minute span. It slows the game down and loses entertainment value within the fans at the stadium and in when viewing at home.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And one last thing regarding offsides is that can we just call it offsides at the beginning of a play too? It's like for 10,
Yes.
20, 30 seconds they continue play and it's like, oh, guess what? All that didn't count. It was offside. I'm just happy that, at least as far as I can remember, I haven't seen a player get injured in one of those plays that was offside after the fact.
I was just about to say, I think the hot take here is that rule won't change until a player gets injured based off that play. I don't think we're going to see MLS change the rule or even FIFA change that rule until someone gets two-footed, gets injured from an offsides call, and be like, that could have been prevented much earlier by calling that offsides. I don't see that being changed until someone gets hurt.
And the impact of this decision, both those decisions, was that it remained 3-1. So the Portland Timbers were knocking on that door. 76th minute, Daniel had to make a save and push a corner shot over the bar. And then 4 minutes later, David DaCosta had a free kick outside the box. It was like 20 yards out, so just outside. And then the wall did their job. So where Rodriguez changed the dynamic of the defense is that he definitely was more aggressive in starting the point of contact earlier up the pitch to make things harder, particularly to meet the energy of also the oncoming substitute of Kevin Kelsey. There was a brief spat, I think, that involved him and Omer Fernandez as well. But once again, with all four goals, these are examples that you can show any kids that are playing soccer. This is how you should be passing toward goal, and this is how you should be finishing. Because once again, Arango's pass to Buda, Buda's run, his finish, it was just textbook stuff. Abram, your thoughts on what was finally the game-clinching goal?
Yeah, I mean, I think that luckily we had clinched it before that, so I could breathe easy. Like we were winning, up until that point, but that definitely took the wind out of Portland's sails. It was a beautiful play. I think the ball from Espinoza over the top. He like chipped it almost onto the feet of Arango, who was then cutting in, and that he wanted an opportunity to take a shot. And if he had one, if they had given him any clear eye line at goal, he would have taken a shot from outside the box. But luckily, he remained composed and did what he does, and just a dink over to the back post where Buda was running in. I love when he's like this, when he's active and attacking the back line off the ball, because he does find really good opportunities, and his finishing, thankfully, matches his tenacity to find good spots. So it was a great finish. It's not easy to do that when the ball's in the air and you have to leave the ground almost to make good contact on it. And he made really good contact to squeeze it in at the near post, which is also very difficult in itself. A lot of players would opt to go for the far post because that would be the easier option, but this was the right option in Buda's case, and I believe that might be his second or third goal of the year, maybe fourth. It's not, I wouldn't say a breakout season, but he's definitely being used to his potential, and he's taking advantage of it to a decent extent. I don't think that he's having an incredible season, but he's definitely an MLS caliber player. Whether he's on the fringes or a sub, yeah, I think that this is a good place for him.
This is the MLS Buda that we were all expecting to see. Just had to make that one little point. Sorry, Ivan.
No, definitely.
No, that's perfect. Yeah, I was hoping for you to chime in there. And Bruce Arena put it well in the press conference that Buda was in a position to succeed. We made things comfortable for him. He played to his strengths, and he got his reward. A goal and assist, one of his most, if not his most productive outing in MLS. And while there's still a work in progress, some other quotes from Bruce Arena: "Your record is your record. We are 4-6-1. We aren't pleased with where we are, and if we knew how to find consistency, we wouldn't have 6 losses." So this is still very much a team that could go either way, and we're just putting the pieces of the puzzle together. We're going to get some of these pieces in a faster frequency in this month of May, but the first step was to win, because the longer you go into a busy month without a win, the more that those losses can start to pile up, and you're going to feel like it's going to be a mountain to climb the rest of the season. And one last thing about this game is that it's a certainty that Usaini Buda is going to go back to the bench when everyone's all healthy, but the Earthquakes have lacked for many seasons now consistent goal contributions off the bench. And given MLS's structure of building a squad, you're not usually going to get one guy off the bench providing 7, 8, 9 goals in a season. But as a collective, you need maybe 2, 3, 4 here, 2, 3, 4 there from a few different guys, and I think we do have those players off the bench that can provide goal contributions. Any lingering thoughts on this 4-1 win over Portland Timbers?
Uh, Devin, I saw you unmute first, so I'm gonna let you go.
It's not necessarily just about this game, but wanted to point out to the fans out there that Espinoza is leading the league in assists, and Chicho is tied for the lead in Golden Boot. It is impressive that we scored this amount of goals. However, it's also impressive that we've conceded this amount of goals. I think once we find our defensive structure and shape, when we have our starting caliber players back in full and healthy rotation, like Hernan Lopez, who just made an appearance for the town for 30 minutes. I don't know if we'll cover that a little later, but just wanted to shout that out. He's coming back into the team. Once we see our big name guys, I think we'll switch back to a 3-5-2, and as Bruce said, the consistency will find its way into our starting 11 and results.
Yeah, and I just wanted to touch on the tactical acumen of Bruce Arena. I think that this game, he really outcoached Phil Neville. Sorry, I just watched the Gary Neville's podcast earlier, so I had him on the mind. So after the game, I was walking back to our cars with Ivan, and Brian Ginovich had stopped us, and we had an interesting conversation where he pointed out that we usually play 3-5-2, and that means that our dedicated attackers are usually like here, and here, like very in the center, the center attacking mid and the two strikers. That's kind of like they're taking up the center of the field, and then we have our wing backs in addition to that. But with this new formation, the 3-4-3, we had a really wide array to make run through, and with the four in the back that Portland had, they had a really hard time covering the runs. Like we just stretched them out wide, and they looked super porous with how many players we had on the width. Like Victor Costa looked really good. He wasn't incredible. Like he did miss a very poor chance, but he looked really good as a system player. DeJuan Jones, obviously one of the men of the match on Saturday. He's incredible, and I think that's really because of the system that he had. DeJuan Jones had Espinoza to work off of, and Espinoza had DeJuan Jones to work off of. And then on the other side, Buda had Victor Costa, and they were just finding each other, making runs, overlapping, and Portland just could not deal with those runs in behind. It just kept happening over and over, and then we kept finding the cutbacks, and we kept scoring and getting chances, and it was really beautiful to watch.
Portland dearly misses Evander, by the way. You can tell it by the way they play. That central figure is completely absent.
Who wouldn't miss Evander? Like he's such a impressive player in this league, and
I miss Evander. Come back to the West.
Yeah.
Nah, he can stay out east, so we don't have to play him as often. But yeah, I do miss him watching him. So we do have to talk about the Sacramento Republic game coming up. Let me just tell you a little bit about Sacramento Republic's side of things before we start thinking about some of our wishes for who lines up for the Earthquakes in that Wednesday night encounter. So they had a big game on Sunday, of course, against their USL local rivals, Oakland Roots. They ended up winning 1-0 through a penalty spot kick from Russell Cicerone. So they were able to grind out the result there, and while their offense wasn't totally productive, they have a pair of really good quality wingers, Cicerone being one of them, and Cristian Perrano, the 25-year-old Argentine, is another. The familiar face, of course, he's still with Sacramento Republic, is Luis Felipe with the unmistakable number 96, so good chance we'll be seeing him again. Their English fullback, Jack Gurr, he is a quality option too. And while their back three doesn't really have many standout names, they're anchored by one of the best goalkeepers in the USL Championship, and he's got a really good beard to go with it. Danny Vitiello is still in net. He kept a clean sheet. He was the man of the match for the Sacramento Republic. And they will be a very tough team to break down. He will require some beating. If we can carve up opportunities against Sacramento like we did against Portland, that would probably do the trick. But knowing San Jose Earthquakes, there's always a chance that even though they were free flowing offensively in this game, when maybe we didn't expect as much, that this could be a more chaotic and evenly matched game as it was the last time these two met in the U.S. Open Cup. And for me, Sacramento Republic, even though that they've never been in the same league as the San Jose Earthquakes, whenever these two meet, you want to beat them just as bad as you want to beat LA Galaxy. Like, this is a really important game. I know Bruce Arena understands it. Christian Espinoza said as much in the press conference. And this should be a very exciting, one of the best matchups of the U.S. Open Cup in this round. And hopefully it won't be the Quakes' last. So let's turn it over to Abram with your thoughts on Sacramento Republic or this game.
First of all, I want to ask Ivan, who has the better beard, me or Sacramento's goalkeeper?
I think based on his profile picture, it may be a little bit exaggerated. It's a tie.
Okay, I'll take a tie. I'll take a tie. You know, we lost against them 2 times, so a tie is better than a loss. I'll take this personal victory. But no, yeah, it's a very terrifying match. You know, I don't have any tactical analysis on Sacramento as Ivan does, who watched them recently. But they are just, I'm scared of them because they keep beating us, and I don't know why. They just seem to want it more. You know, the press conference, we should have it posted by the time this episode comes out. But Bruce said when asked, you asked him, Ivan, do you want to say what he said to your question and what he asked him?
I regarding Sacramento Republic or regarding
Yeah,
Buda?
you asked him about the lineup that he might run out. Maybe somebody else
I
asked
didn't
him.
ask him about that.
Sorry, I thought you did.
Someone else did.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
now I'm like, that's just a question that I don't ask, especially regarding U.S. Open Cup. It's like, for me, with all due respect, we love everyone that is with us in the press box, but with the schedule the way it is, there's just no way around rotation. Like, we
Yeah.
know that's going to be the case, and it doesn't give the manager any good to tip your hand as to what that rotation might look like to the other team. Not that it
Mm.
matters for Sacramento Republic as much compared to if we were playing another MLS team, because they know that an MLS quality lineup, regardless of who's there, is going to be a difficult task. One that they've overcome many times over the last few years, but still, like there was no answer that Bruce Arena could have given other than we're going to field a team that can win the game.
That's
Which,
exactly
of
what he
course,
said. Yeah. Which I chose to interpret as not the only children, not like the only backups. Like he's gonna try and win the game is what I heard. You know, because that I don't want to accuse anyone, but I didn't feel like that was always the case. I felt like we maybe played a weaker lineup than necessary. Though these games have always come in the middle of a very hectic time in terms of our schedule, you know, I am hoping that that analysis or that quote from Bruce means that he's gonna try and win. I think we've heard rumors that Hernan Lopez should be in the squad. I can't say that he'll start per se because you know he was injured and he only got 30 minutes with the town. But you know he might be on the bench, and that would be pretty nice. With that being said, Nico could be starting. Um, I hope I haven't seen Nico in a long time, and I miss him. And I think that he played. He was one of the best players on the pitch last time we played Sacramento Republic. So I'd love to see him get another chance. But no. I just wanted to talk about what Bruce said and how he's going to try and win this match, which I feel like is a little bit more than we've had previously. So.
Do you guys think Bruce will sacrifice this coming weekend's game and just play all of our starters versus Sac and get the players confident in this tournament?
I Ivan, I'll let you go because I just spoke.
I don't think it can work just because to start virtually the same 11 between Saturday and Wednesday, I don't think that's going to be feasible.
I also want to point out that Ben Jukanovic, Paul Marie, Jamar Ricketts, they didn't show up for the town, and they had been previously, and so you know, uh, the fact that they were getting fitness up to this point, then didn't play this match on Sunday, kind of to me shows that they should be in the squad for the game against Sacramento Republic, which those are MLS caliber players. Those are very strong players who just haven't had a chance to play this season for one reason or another. Those are good players. Those are players that we've had in our starting 11 before. So I don't know if we necessarily need to sacrifice any games. We do have a large squad full of players who have quality, the quality of playing MLS and experience in the league. So I think that we'll have a good squad, but not necessarily need to start like every single player. We have No Buck and all them. Like it should be fine either way.
Yeah, I don't expect us to field the exact same 11. However, I do think Espinoza will attempt to make his case with Bruce to play him again. There was like a press conference or an interview a while back with Espinoza, and he wants to play every game. He wants to play every minute. He doesn't want to miss out on any opportunity to play for us or any team he plays for. I can see him starting and then maybe getting subbed at either half and whatnot. Maybe even Yosef. Not really sure what an update on his injury is. May or may not play. Abram shaking his head no. It's I could see Bo LaRue, for example. These types of guys who are young and are hungry for more minutes want to make an impact, and then other guys who are older, Pellegrino, might start over someone else and play limited minutes. Yeah, I mean, like Abram said, we've got depth. Everything's up in the air with how we'll take on Sacramento Republic, and hopefully we just come away after 90 minutes, maybe even longer, judging based off what happened last year. Hopefully not, away with a win.
My main wish is that Daniel starts. With goalkeepers, they don't need to be rotated as much. And while you do want to give opportunities somewhere along the calendar for your backup, it also does have to be earned. And when you think of it, the way that Daniel missed a few games, Earl Edwards Jr. already got around the same amount of opportunities you would probably have expected him to at some point this season. And we've seen what we needed to see from Earl Edwards Jr. I would feel a lot more comfortable with Daniel starting, and thinking about which other players may start that started this game and logged heavy minutes. I would feel most comfortable with one of Espinoza or Arango starting. That would be great. With Harks and or LaRue, like I would not put it past either of them. It probably makes sense for Ricketts to get an opportunity, and Victor Costa maybe rests for the start of the game at least. And
There's
then
K too. We got K.
yeah, and of the back three, because we've been really rotating between five center backs, especially with no Bruno Wilson. I would like to see Romney at least play that first half, and then maybe you bring someone else in. But especially if the options are Rodriguez, which is cool, but Bruce Arena maybe a little bit iffy on still, and then Reed Roberts, then you probably don't want it to be some combination like Roberts, Muni, and Floriani, for example.
I have a question for the table, even though we're all in different houses. I want to know if you could go to Bruce and be like, "Hey, Bruce, I want one player in the starting 11." And he had to listen to you. Like, which player would you pick to be in the starting 11?
Daniel.
Lock it down, no question. Daniel, that would be my pick as well because he's so clutch, and I do not trust the backup.
It's the biggest drop off from starter to backup of any player we have in the San Jose Earthquakes.
Devon,
Sorry if that's a little mean, but that's just how it is.
I agree.
Well, you guys both chose Daniel. I don't want to follow the train here. As much as I want to choose Daniel, I think for me, I would vote Espinoza. He brings plenty to the field, at least on the widths. I can't really think of another player that I'd want because we have good offensive depth. I mean, if Benji's back it'd be cool to see Benji as much. He hasn't really played for the team. He was sitting right behind me too for the game, and you can tell he was emotionally involved. Yeah, go on, Abram.
No, I just wanted to say, like, we all would have picked Daniel, because that's how big of an impact he's gonna have or has had on the club in the time he's been here. Just an incredible goalkeeper, and I also I'm praying I would feel so much better. I don't even think I'm gonna go to the game if Daniel isn't starting. I'm just gonna go home because I can't. My little heart cannot deal with this. It's just so. It is like it hurt. It hurt the last two times I went to Sacramento. We charted out some kids, and I liked those kids, but they weren't ready for the occasion, and we got beat, and I had to take the long drive home. And the Sacramento fans are not nice about it.
I do believe
rough.
I do believe Tanner Beeson was a majority fault for that game as well. He's on the reps now. We don't have to worry about Tanner Beeson
Yeah,
anymore.
I thought I wouldn't hear his name again, but I think that's a little bit harsh. I think that he wasn't good, but I need a solid defense to make sure they stop scoring goals, and if they can't score goals, they can't win the game, and I'm fine with that.
I have a question for you to the table. If you were to choose a player from the bench he's been a consistent piece on the bench for the last couple of weeks, or has been a steady rotation player, who would you pick from the bench to start this Wednesday, and who would you swap them out for?
Nico for LaRue.
Yeah, that's very interesting. If we're going with the same lineup of 3-4-3, then then I think Nico could play as an 8. If we're not starting Espinoza, like, this is just purely theoretical, I'm curious what he could do on the right. That's where he started in his debut for his Bay Cities all those years ago. I don't think that's what Bruce wants for him. But I just want to get Nico on the field, and that's who I would pick probably.
I think he has to find a spot for Nico somewhere. I think that's part of why he didn't play at all this game, and I think that for that reason, I have good faith that Sekiris will see the field for a large portion of this game. My last question I'm going to pose to each of you before I briefly preview the Colorado game is, what would you say, if you could put a percentage on it, is the chance that the Earthquakes advance past Sacramento Republic and at least get a point in Mile High against Colorado? And I know that's not their stadium, but Mile High City, Denver, Commerce City. Go ahead, Abram.
I don't want to say that we have. I mean, I think we have a good chance. Like, if you look at the two squads, we have the better chance, right? But my body doesn't want to allow me to let those words escape my mouth because I don't want to be hurt again. Like, Sacramento specifically is like, right now I hate them more than Galaxy, because Galaxy is just not. They're having their own thing happen right now.
No wins yet.
I am just Sacramento. I if this game was in Sacramento, I'd have to get like on some kind of medication, because like, just their stadium is, by the way, is like very small, but the atmosphere that they conjure is incredible, and it's God, and they're so mean. They're so mean too. I think that realistically, if I'm like picking with my brain, I think it's a 70% chance that the Earthquakes can pull it out, just because of the pure quality that we have and depth. We have good depth that should be able to see this game out without having to strain any of our starters or all of our starters. I think we can do it, but my heart says 30%. We like it goes flips completely the other way. What do you think, Devon?
I think I'm going to shoot this question back to Ivan. I have a bad prediction history.
He asked you.
I have a bad prediction history. You know this, Abram. I can't answer
predict,
this.
just your feeling.
My feeling is, oh god, I don't even want to say that. Oh gosh,
50-50.
it could be a 2-2 draw, 2-2 draw by 70th minute. I'm not so confident. I don't like playing against Sac, especially when it's in Sac. I'm happy that it's here, but even it's still Sac nonetheless. We don't
So
have a
to
good
answer
history.
my own question as intended, the percentage I would give knocking out Sacramento and getting at least a draw in Colorado, I will say 60%. The reason for that is because there's no guarantee that we beat Sacramento. It's going to be a very tough game, and Colorado Rapids are not in the U.S. Open Cup, so they're going to be more rested for their MLS game. And just to speak on Colorado Rapids briefly, I know we just hit the hour mark. So the things to be aware of is that they came off a 2-1 loss to DC United, so probably their worst loss of the season. A big part of that, though, is because some of their key players were on the bench. Uh, Cole Bassett did not enter the game recovering from an injury. He was good enough to be on the bench. He didn't enter the game. Sam Vines came in around the 76th minute. That was an interesting one. He dropped to the bench in favor of 21-year-old Jackson Travis at left back. And then there were some other young players that got starts in that game. 23-year-old Joshua Atencio in midfield and 20-year-old Darren Yappy in the starting spot. But they're still going to have some dangerous players. Kevin Cabral, Rafael Navarro, Georgi Mihalovic, and if Cole Bassett is closer to 100%, he should probably start too. So it is important for Earthquakes where they're at in relation to Colorado Rapids. They are pretty close in the table. You can bridge that gap significantly with a win, but most importantly is to not lose that game and to just have that confidence. And you're not going to win every game, especially in a busy month. But if you can go on the road and get a point in such a packed schedule, that is still very good, especially if you can do what you did in Portland and stockpile those wins at home. Any final thoughts on the Quakes going into this doubleheader of a week?
I think from your question, Ivan, I will state a 50%. Since you asked percentage wise, it's tough flying to Colorado and playing in elevation after you just played a weekday game. The likelihood of coming away with any sort of point in Colorado is very hard, especially when you think about the fact that the last time we played them, Zach Steffen played like how we see Daniel. You know, any of our attackers will be frustrated with any sort of chance with Zach Steffen right in front. He's going to make saves left and right. We're going to have to pelt him with at least 2 to 3 shots every 5 to 10 minutes. That's the only way that I can see us coming home with a result. Getting on the score sheet early and hunkering back in the last second half of the game.
Okay. Abram, any final thoughts?
No, yeah, I think that the question that you posed, the Colorado portion of it, is much harder to predict. The odds are not in our favor for that one, but if the Earthquakes, anything can happen. You know, everyone has off days, so I'm sure that we can go and get a result in Colorado. But because of the reasons that Devon mentioned, I'm not super confident about that. I'm also struggling, to be honest, to look past the Sacramento game because I'm so anxious about it. But we'll see.
That's all good, and rightfully so. You can't look past any opponent. The nature of the way that we bring out these episodes to you all is that for these busier weeks, that unless we split these up into smaller episodes, that we have to cover 2 games sometimes. But I think that there is still optimism in San Jose Earthquakes, at least at this point of the season. We're only in early May, but it feels a lot better than it did the last 3 games. So on that note, we thank you all for watching this episode of the Tectonic Takes podcast. That's one hurdle cleared in this long gauntlet. We'll see how well they do in these next couple ones, and hopefully this month gets even busier because we advance in the U.S. Open Cup. Go Quakes!
Go Quakes.